Leah Stacy, welcome to the Other 51.
Thank you.
And because it is a Hamilton-themed podcast, and I know you're a Hamil geek like myself, did you hear the news today? We're recording November 3rd. The mixtape is going to be available for pre-order tomorrow. Yes.
What?
The mixtape that Lin-Manuel has been working on is.
I didn't know.
They announced the track list, so.
Oh. Man.
So
I got to catch up on my news.
Right. So how did you come to Hamilton?
I guess two ways. I read a lot of theater news, and so obviously it started to get a lot of buzz probably last year. Mm-hmm. And then I also had a couple of friends go see it, and they were kind of more seeing it because they're history nerds. And then once they saw it, they were like, "This is incredible. You need to go see it." Sadly, I have not seen it.
Me neither.
So just soundtrack over and over.
Right.
I haven't even seen the documentary yet, which is bad. Madeline's seen it, so my intern has seen it, and she told me that it's wonderful.
It's quite good. I'll be honest, I was a touch disappointed.
Oh, really?
Well, and it's wonderfully done. There's no complaints on it. It's personally, no spoilers, but you know how it ends. Okay. I would rather have more about the making of the show and about making of the writing of the characters. There's a lot about about the historical aspect of it. There's a lot about Hamilton and a lot about Burr and a lot about the actual historical figures, which makes sense because it's the PBS documentary. So
yeah,
but that's
more like the context that they did, like contextual work that they did for the show.
And there's some great stuff. Like they show Leslie Odom and Lin-Manuel with the guns, the actual guns, in the library looking over the letters. So it was personal preference that I didn't like. Yeah, that made me a little disappointed in it, but that's personal. So what's your favorite song on the soundtrack right now?
Is it too cliche to say, the opening number is still my favorite?
No, not at all.
Okay. It's just, that's when it hits you. Right. And you're like, this is going to be incredible. Mm-hmm. I feel like once I am in a seat watching that show, I'm just going to, have chills right away. I always wait for that moment when I see a show, the chills moment. Right. And if I don't get it, especially when I'm reviewing, it's really disappointing because that's, the magic moment. That's when it's okay, I'm here to have an experience. I'm not thinking about everything I have to do or what's stressing me out or anything like that. The weather, which becomes a bigger factor here in the next couple minutes or months. And, when I get, the chills feeling. And I get that just from listening to that first song. So I can't imagine the experience of actually seeing the show.
My wife is the same way with theater stuff. Every show she loves, there's that moment that she has. When we saw Company a few years ago, when it came back, the Raul Esparza's big number at the end. I was sitting next to her, and I could feel her having the moment next to her. So, but yeah, I think whenever I see it, the first notes from the dun 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 dun, dun, that's gonna do it. My favorite song recently, I've been listening to a lot. Wait for it.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
It's something that it's one of those that the more you listen to it, the album, the big songs catch your attention first. The first number, My Shot, Yorktown, all the big numbers. But Wait For It is so wonderfully quiet and wonderfully. It's. I listened to it 4 times on my way home from work yesterday. I just keep hitting it, rewind on it. So from a writer, and you write about theater, you review theater, so from both your perspective as someone who reviews it and just someone who writes professionally and teaches writing, what blows you away about that show more than anything else? Oh
my gosh, so I had this conversation with a friend yesterday, because I don't know, of course you follow Lin on social media, and was it yesterday that he was tweeting and then also put on Facebook that he's the same age as Harry Potter?
I saw that the other day, yeah.
Okay, so hypothetically, Harry Potter's born in 1980. And so then I was like, wait, he's only 35? Or 36 this year, I guess, depending on when his birthday is. And I was just blown away. So as somebody who, juggles all these things, I'm thinking, how incredible that he did In the Heights, which I don't even know the exact year that came out, but I'm guessing he was late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
And now he's got this hit, which has then kind of springboarded him to even bigger, movie projects. And it's just, I guess from a writer standpoint, I'm really impressed that he had the dedication to pull off such a large project with so much vision and so much focus at that age.
it's humbling to think that he's younger than me, and like he's already got 2 Tonys, and he's got the defining, the career defining work already. It's
also a little bit aggravating,
right?
Because I'm like, okay, so what have I done lately? And teaching, I mean, you know this, we affect many lives, we hope, but it's a totally different, I guess, field in a lot of ways than affecting an audience, many of whom you'll never talk to.
Right. I was just reading the book today, the Hamilton book today, and it's always if I'm feeling stuck on something, break that out, and that's always good for a little.
Really?
It is that inspirational, like in the best way. Like you read that, and you're like, your spirit is lifted. It sounds terribly corny to say, but it feels that.
No, you need things like that.
Right.
I definitely have things I go back to like that.
What?
So I have been reading a lot of Brene Brown.
Okay.
And then I know that like people are split on Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she just wrote the newer book. Oh my goodness, the name is escaping me. I just ordered it. It's centered around like finding your spark, finding your passion.
Okay.
And so a lot of times I read like nonfiction stories of people who have done things that I do, like writing or teaching or just generally creating. So I definitely have things that I go back to. Austin Kleon's a big one too.
Okay.
His books, How to Steal Like an Artist.
I've seen that one, yeah.
And that's actually a book that I used in class.
Okay.
And it's not like a textbook. It's kind of like an illustrated guide to how to be an artist.
Right.
But it's one of those like really quick reads, always inspirational. I feel like I learn something every time I read it, which is really important.
How much do you view yourself as a writer, teacher, reviewer, whatever noun you use to define yourself, but as like an artist overall? I mean, do you feel like that touches every aspect of your career?
I think it does, and sometimes I gauge it by how emotionally drained I feel. Is that dramatic?
No.
Because whenever you're creating or like working with art, I think that you're emotionally very vulnerable. Because you have to be if it's going to be powerful, right? So writing, I don't think there's really that many things that make you more vulnerable than writing. Because you are putting your thoughts out, I guess, in front of an audience. So it is. I guess I do some stuff like that. And you're inviting people to your opinion sometimes, like when I'm reviewing, or to your thoughts. Like, I know that some of my readers are definitely smarter than I am. So it's that constant, like, putting yourself out there, creating something that didn't exist before. And that can drain you very quickly. So I consider everything I do to be related to art in some way.
Kind of walk through some of your current writing gigs. I know with teaching, you have a lot of projects kind of on your plate. So kind of, what are some of the projects for people who maybe aren't familiar with your work, and how do you try to juggle it? I'm going to say how do you juggle it, because I know that's always an effort, but like how do you balance out all your different projects?
Well, I have help on a lot of them, which is great. But as far as writing, I stick to a couple of main things during the semester, just because being in and out of the classroom and working with students takes a lot of time, as you know. So I am a theater critic for our local alt weekly, City. And then once in a while, usually more toward the spring, I'll pitch a couple big pieces nationally.
Okay.
I've done stuff for American Theater. I have a pitch I'm working on that I would like to send to Bon Appetit or Eater in the spring, but I wait often for those until I have the summer to work on them. So feature stories, definitely love to do them. Don't always have the time during the semester.
Right.
And then I have a couple PR clients, so I'm always writing press releases and, social media posts, like that kind of one-off writing. And then with Boomtown, which is the food and drink website, that is mostly editing. But a lot of times it does require like a rewrite here and there, fix a sentence, and then sometimes I do take on stories that I'm particularly passionate about.
Okay.
So yeah, in the semester it tends to be lower. Over the summer I did a lot of writing. I probably wrote a piece a week.
Okay.
So that's kind of, I save my energy for the summer. And I also, like, I'm ready for it by that point because I've spent the past 2 semesters reading over things and editing things, and I'm, like, ready to get back in the game.
Right. What are some of your subjects that you write about, and kind of how do you juggle going from like a feature mindset to a PR mindset to a teaching mindset, and how similar are they and how different are they, and how tough is it to kind of bounce from one mindset to the other?
I think the most unifying theme for all of them is story, which might be a little cliche. But even when I write a press release, I like to start it with a moment or a scene. And to bring people in. I think generally when we think press releases, we think really dry, pretty awful, necessary evil, but I don't think they have to be that way. So I bring a lot of storytelling into that. Also with teaching, that's something I'm constantly harping on is story, no matter what the class is, bringing that in. And then with feature stories, so like I wrote a cover story over the summer, and then I actually got the chance to write a 3,000-word story about social media. And I tend to get assigned, I don't know why, but like interview profile type pieces or things that have to do with the arts. So theater. I was doing food writing for City for a while and then pulled back to do more for Boomtown. So it tends to kind of fall in those categories. I don't know if that's because that's what I do publicly or people just feel like that's what I have the most experience in.
Okay. So what's a good story to you?
What is a good story overall? Any medium?
Sure.
I think it's something that catches attention right away. Whether that's the lead or, if it's audio, it's the first couple seconds. If it's on stage, it's the first few seconds of the first scene. Because we live in a culture that's very fast, very noisy, and there's a lot of competition. So you have to, to be the best now or to capture your audience, you really have to do that fast.
How important is that idea? You mentioned that it kind of is almost your unifying theme, and that's a really interesting idea. So how important in general for you in your writing is to be able to find what the story is?
It's really important.
How hard is it? I mean, is it something you can kind of pick out pretty quickly, like news judgment? Is it like...
Yeah. Well, you know how it goes. Sometimes it depends on the other person. And some people are harder to draw that story out of than others. Sometimes it's really obvious, depending on the assignment. I like to meet with people in person or go to the place I'm writing about or eat the food that I'm talking about to kind of immerse myself and then build it from there. I think sometimes it's the hardest to grab attention when you go back and edit and put it together. Sometimes my lead is the last thing I write because I'm just there's so much writing on this. What's the best thing? I'll move paragraphs around and
So you mentioning food that is an interesting angle for me. So how do you find the story in food?
Oh man, I think a lot of times, and what we tend to focus on with Boomtown is not so much reviews, but the story behind the scenes. So who's making this food and why do they care about it? Why are these things on the menu? Is it because it's seasonal or trendy, or do they have some sort of family heritage that's linked to this? And then I think a lot of times it's also the story of local business or commerce. And so being able to sort of write about the growing scene here, what we're contributing on a national level is really interesting to me too. So I guess a little bit of that startup aspect.
Okay. I'm always this is weird of me, but I'm always oddly intrigued by stories about food, especially athletes. You write a feature about athletes and food and what they eat and how they eat. I don't know why I'm so that's a light to my moth. I'm there.
Yeah.
I remember trying to pitch a story when I worked in Binghamton as a sports writer of they used to have in the clubhouse, they would have the food guidelines for the team, what would be available for the day. And I remember trying to pitch that to my editors and saying, what can we regular people learn about how baseball players eat? And they poo-pooed it. They didn't like it. And so I never wrote it. But I'm curious, because you write about and you edit food, why, we live in obviously kind of a growing foodie culture. Food Network is big, celebrity chefs, food TV shows are popular. What is it about food that makes makes for such compelling and popular stories, do you think?
I think part of it is human experience, because everybody can relate to it on some level. Mm-hmm. I do think another part of it is how trendy it is right now. Mm-hmm. We care more. There's more education out there. We're still not there with education, but there is more available. You have, like, for instance, I have college students who are doing persuasive speeches about GMOs.
Okay.
I didn't know what GMOs were when I was in college. There's just more conversation going on around the topics within food. Even things like how much red meat should we consume, that sort of thing. By the way, if you pitched me a story like that, I would totally pick it up. Because I think that is so interesting, especially on a local level.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we try to do. We try to bring it back locally because that's even another way that our audience can connect. Okay. So, like, yes, everyone eats, and we all know delicious food is delicious. Mm-hmm. But...
Right. So what are the, get a little plug, what are the... where are the hot spots here in Rochester for food? Like what's kind of interested you from not just the food is good perspective, because you have the standards in town, but from a story perspective or from a business perspective, like what's interesting right now in Rochester food?
Can I expand it to drink too?
Please.
Okay, so I don't know if you've been to Fiorella in the public market.
No, I have not.
It didn't open that long ago. I want to say it was last summer. And it's a husband and wife who own it. Gino is the chef, and he was at Two Vine for a long time, just back in the kitchen. Kind of, if you were in the industry, you probably knew who he was. But if you just went and ate there, you probably didn't know. Mm-hmm. And so now he owns and operates and is the head chef there. And he is very Italian. And they have some of the most fresh, authentic Italian food there. It's also very communal, so the tables are just long and against the wall, and a lot of times you might end up sitting close to someone you don't know. And just the way that they present everything, very small, simple menu, and then the fact that it's a husband and wife with a very young child running it. Allison runs the front of house. It's just, every time I go in there, I feel like there are so many stories about them that are still left to be told, because we all know, like, how hard it is to be married if we're married. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine also running a business, having a young child? Yeah, and in a business in such a competitive industry.
And it's such a demanding, brutal business industry.
Yeah. And then, customer service, everything about that. So that's one place. And then we also are working on a story right now about a bartender at Cure. He's the head bartender there, also in the market. He just created an app. Okay. And it helps bartenders figure out what the pour cost should be. So, like, based on how much you pay for the bottle, what should you be charging for the cocktail you make with that bottle? Okay. Really interesting. Yeah. It's on iTunes, got it approved and everything. And it's one of those things. Like, we have so many people here doing things that are worth national coverage, but unless someone tells us, we don't know. Right. And so... there's always so many stories.
Mm-hmm. What's your writing general process like? You mentioned, like, you don't always write the lead first. You sometimes write the lead last. So, what's your writing, when you have a writing day, what does that look like? Like, are you a gather everything, then write? Are you gather, write? Like, generally speaking, how does a piece come together for you?
I do tend to do all the research and interviews before I start really writing. But if I have an idea for, like, a loose outline or something, I will go in and start a Word doc, jot that in there. I'll transcribe all the interviews separately, and then I actually open up every single document at once, and I go through. I read through the interview after I've transcribed, which I hate doing. Does anyone like doing that?
No.
And, yeah, I will go through. I'll look for the most interesting quotes. I'll pull those into the outline. I almost always create an outline before I start writing. Okay. And that's just, like, intro, why are we talking about this? Mm-hmm. Very loose.
Okay. Have you always done that?
No, I think I started doing that when I got busier.
Okay.
Yeah. Time was a luxury.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just kind of as a way to kind of, like, when you come back to it, kind of keep a piece in motion, or kind of, like, organize so it's, where it is in organization? Okay.
Yeah. definitely a little bit of both. Especially like the 3,000 word piece that I wrote over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
That we ended up breaking into sections because I think I did 6 interviews for that one, and then we brought in some more academic research, and yeah, that was almost like building more like a scholarly article.
Okay.
In some ways, where I established credibility right away, and then went into supporting the claim that I was making.
Okay, what was the claim in that article?
So we were talking about how it's really important if you work online to sort of hit refresh, and I can send it to you.
Yes, please do.
And if you work, especially in social media, like how do you stay healthy, basically.
Okay.
So
neat.
Yeah.
So you teach. What classes do you teach normally?
This semester I am teaching oral communication, social media, and writing for digital media.
Okay.
I tend to teach the hands-on, like, practical resume skills.
Right.
What you would think of in those terms. So
okay.
Writing, editing.
All right. So this is kind of awkward with a student in the room, but what are the biggest sins you see your writers making and the young writers making, and how do you kind of work with them to overcome them?
Oh yeah, she knows this. That's fine. First of all, overuse of commas. Second of all, I think use of person. So
okay.
like first, second, third, and then past and present tense.
Okay.
So I taught feature writing last semester, and this came in pretty heavily. It was a 300 level course. Many of them hadn't done a lot of writing beforehand, but they had good ideas.
Okay.
And so how do we take those good ideas and translate them to powerful stories? And so we definitely had to review mechanics and grammar sometimes, and I don't ever grade with a red pen, but I grade with a blue pen.
Okay.
And so they definitely had, like, some of them got heavily blue things returned to them. But yeah, I think anybody can be taught those basic rules. There is sort of an inherent quality, I think, that good storytellers have. And it was what you mentioned earlier. They know how to find the story.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because one of the faults I see and try to help my young writers with is they feel the need to overly set up a story. And I tend to write more journalism, teach more journalism classes, but even in my like lecture courses, like they spend a lot of time like setting up the, if they're writing about partying at college, the whole 2 paragraphs how college is cliche and known for partying, and like the setting it up. And I always want to tell them, no, just
just big X.
Right. If you don't have to tell me that college is known for a time for partying, because we all know it's a time for partying. So you can get on that. Do you not edit with a red pen on purpose?
Yeah.
Really? Why?
I had a professor who abused the red pen. Should we put it that way? I also I don't know. I've never liked what it sort of suggests.
Okay.
And I feel terrible because you're like holding
I'm a red pen. I'm a red pen editor. But no, I actually had one student because I've always edited in red pen.
Yeah.
Just because that's what you do.
Yeah, I think that's what you do. Yeah.
But I had one student, and it was at Newhouse. She was a sophomore or junior when I was teaching News 205, and she actually asked, kind of jokingly, but can you not edit in a different color red because of that kind of psychological aspect of it? I
think it's a little bit of like classical conditioning, where we see the red pen and we know we did something wrong, and then some of us have personalities where we focus on like I did something wrong instead of like I need to fix this, or I need to go back and look. I think there's some students that become easily discouraged when they see that.
Have you had students tell you that or like so you've never graded with a red pen?
No.
So I actually I'm going to try this as an experiment. I think I'm going to edit.
Sometimes I use orange, like orange highlighter.
Okay.
If they've done something in blue pen already, then I'll use orange instead.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try this because I wonder if there's if they react differently.
I think I was using purple for a while. Do you remember? I've never used red though.
Okay, interesting. So we have a fun interview history. Because I interviewed you for about the Bly project that you did. This was 100 years ago. At Spot Coffee with Pete, and this is before you guys were married. It was you, Pete, and I forget your
Kevin.
Kevin. Yeah. Yes. So That was such a cool project because that was where you guys drove. Did you go all around? Oh no, you went to Austin.
We drove down the East Coast.
Okay, East Coast.
Yeah, it was about 3,000 miles.
Okay, so I'm curious, when you look back on that project, and if I can find a link, I'll throw it in the show notes for the episode. When you look back on that project now, kind of two-part question. One, what stands out to you from remembering, and B, what would you tell the Leah Stacy who's taking that trip or starting that trip, knowing what you know now about writing, about just everything?
So many feels right now. Let's see. That was 4 years ago, so a full presidential cycle. What stands out the most is how little I actually knew.
Okay.
And maybe that is also what I would say to that person who was overly ambitious and maybe a little bit obnoxious. I would say calm down a little bit and enjoy this for what it is. Don't focus so much on work the whole time. And also set more realistic goals.
Okay.
Because the whole overly ambitious thing, like, we fit so much work into that 3 weeks, and it was a lot to bite off into at that young experience level, but also age. Yeah.
So what's the best thing you've read lately?
Oh, that's a great question. So I just finished a book that was a memoir written from the Syracuse area, actually, and maybe you want to interview this person. But the girl who wrote it worked on a CSA for a full year.
Oh, nice.
Her name is Rochelle Bilo. And then after that, she went to work in New York as Bon Appetit's social media manager. She just recently moved back to Syracuse, and we had her come up for Upstate.
Okay.
And so I knew that I was going to meet her and be sort of hosting her, and I was like, I'm going to read her book. And it's funny because when we talked about it, she said, not everyone likes my book. Some people were very, condescending in their reviews.
Okay.
And I actually thought that it was a wonderful portrait of a person in their 20s who's trying to figure out who they are, which I think is sort of what a lot of people in our generation have been stuck in. Maybe it's the recession, maybe we're millennials, but maybe everyone's gone through that, and we're just going through it in a much more public way because of social media and the internet. Yeah,
because it's very easy. I'm almost 40 now, and to read or talk to somebody in their 20s about their crisis. It's very easy to kind of oh sweetie, you're so young, or you don't know we all went through this, but in a way it also that doesn't invalidate what they're saying. I went through it, they went through, you went through it, you're going to go through it, everyone's going to go through it, but that doesn't make it any less valid. And it's a really interesting point you make, that we're just doing it public, we and the younger, it's just more public, and we're writing about it, and there's more places to write about it. So what's the name of the book?
It's called The Call of the Farm.
Okay.
If you want to borrow it, you can send it to work with Pete.
That would be great.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, who are listening, Leah's husband and my wife work together at the same ad agency, so...
They're married to professors.
Yes, they...
I feel like we have a lot of the same conversations at home.
I'm sure we absolutely do. I'm sure we do. So I was trying to think of what on the way over, of anything I've read lately that's great. And I'm in the middle of a book. I forget the name of it. I think it's called Constructing Penn Station or something. It's about the building of the original Penn Station in New York City,
cool.
and the railroad and the tunnels of that, and what a big deal it was for New York for that. To build that, and it's a little bit of a slog it's a compelling. I'm more interested in the station than the tunnels, and the tunnels are the important part of that, obviously.
Yeah.
But I do feel that this idea, like we were talking about, it doesn't have the story. Like I'm trying to figure out, it doesn't have that super compelling protagonist pushing it through, or it just feels really kind of scattered. A little bit in its story, but historically it's really interesting. And the best thing I actually read today was, and I'll link to this, the lead to the New York Times story about the World Series last night. We're recording this today after the Cubs won the World Series, their first World Series win in 108 years, and it's funny because it's a momentous lead that you're writing. You're writing for the history books when you write this, and I forget the name, I just saw the Twitter card, but they nailed it. I mean, they absolutely nailed it perfectly. So,
did you stay up for the whole game?
I did.
Wow. Oh man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Isn't it until like 1 a.m.?
Oh yeah, it's about till 1. Yeah. There's been a lot of coffee this morning. But it was funny because it was a game I had no rooting interest in. Like I like to see the Cubs win. I had no problem with Cleveland winning, but it was just such a dramatic game.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, it was very, very. It was I knew I was going to stay up for the game no matter what, and it was a game that just kind of it lived up to the hype, which was kind of cool to see. So. All right. Well, Leah, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you being on with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking.